Hello and welcome to another episode of Bare Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. Alright, we're back again, out in the Pacific, out with, that's right, you guessed it, Fleet Commander Nimitz. I'm not sure what the Saturday Night Live voiceover was for, but anyway. Okay, let's see. So, I have tried the fleet cards that are the Yamamoto Expansion, which has been both good and bad because the Yamamoto Expansion was kind of advertised, unless I'm mistaken about this. I'd have to go back and look, but more of like an AI thing, and it's not really. Really, the AI is really the movement orders. So I'll talk about that here in a second, what I've seen with that. Still, with this playthrough, adding the fleets. Now, the good thing about the fleets is that the board is now much less cluttered. If you take a look over here, like even in Japan, even with the number of air and infantry units that are there, you can see there's not those big, unwieldy stacks. Okay, because we got 3 fleet markers there. We've got Surface Fleet 2 and the Carrier Fleets 2 and 5. Although, notice Carrier Fleets 2 and 5 are back in home waters. So, yeah. So the scouting thing still seems to be an issue. I tried something different this time around. Whoops. What I did was, when I did the scouting, because the chart has results of basically 1 through 19, I decided to try a 20-sided die with no modifiers, no adjustments, and keep track of the resupply numbers as I go. Now, the first time I did it, on the first turn, the results were actually pretty decent. The Japanese still got some of their carrier fleets out, and when all was said and done after the orders, the Japanese had sent a force to New Guinea and a force to Midway. Okay, that basically mirrors history. You know, in the spring and summer of 1942, well, I guess really late spring, because summer really doesn't start till around the 22nd, 21st of June anyway. So actually that was fine on the opening turn. I had a big victory at Midway, sunk several fleet carriers, that sounds familiar, and got my Dupa handed to me down in New Guinea. Okay, now this turn, excuse me, the Japanese came back to Midway, round 2, and the results also move them into the Solomons. Again, not bad, okay, overall in the end. But there's still a lot of units that are like, I mean, some units, of course, are going to be refitting. Some units are going to be doing different things. But there's still some issues with the orders. And there's also an issue with the fleet cards. So let me show you the fleet cards here. I've got them set up on this side of the table. Now let's go ahead and zoom in. Okay. Now, the good thing about the fleet cards, you can see there, is they are nicely organized. But if you look at this top one, and I've left it this way just to show you, the fleet cards come with a number of transports, which, by the way, there's not enough transport counters to go around. So you don't have enough. You'll have to come up with some, I guess, unless the second edition has more. But the big thing is putting units on these transports. If you got 4 transports, like this particular setup here has, with Surface Fleet number 1, you're supposed to have 4 infantry on it. And of course, if you don't have enough infantry divisions, then you use battalions, which is basically a standard rule of the game. Well, the problem with that is, this last turn I had, when I sent Surface Fleet number 3 to Midway, along with some other ships that were with one of the Battleship Fleet number 1. That was the other one. Had 4 transports with it. Okay, so basically I had a force with 5 transports, which is like was able to round up 4 infantry divisions. But we're talking about Midway Island, and I looked this up after, and you can see my little glow in the dark die there that I use. That's from one of the Nuclear War games. I forget which one. At least I think it glows in the dark. Does it still glow in the dark? I think it does. Should we find out? We could, I guess. I don't know. I think it's supposed to glow in the dark. I don't know if it has been enough light on it, maybe. That's a possibility, too. Let's see. Yes, it does glow in the dark. So, anyway, point being is that I use that as my marker instead of the battle location marker. But the other point being is that when I looked this up on the internet and double checked on this, the Japanese only sent an invasion force of 5,000 men. And a standard Japanese division of combat troops had 11,000 men. So where the devil are you going to put all those people? You know, and supposedly they're going to be landing and then attacking U.S. forces that are there. It's just, it's absurd. So there's still issues here. And I was thinking more about this, and I was like, you know, I own and have enjoyed Field Commander Rommel and Field Commander Alexander the Great and Field Commander Napoleon. And I was thinking to myself, what's different about this game with the other three? And I think the answer is, and this is why the orders are difficult, the scout issue seems to be there and some other issues, is because it's kind of overreaching. You know, when you look at those other systems, like for example Rommel, the biggest scale you're looking at is, you know, a single campaign like France in 1940 or North Africa in, what was it, 41, 42 roughly, 43 I think actually, spring if I remember correctly. Or like Napoleon, you know, each campaign, you know, the Italian campaign in 1796 or Leipzig, you know, or the Russian campaign. In other words, if you look at the scale, even Alexander, you know, there's one map that's Tyre. There's one map that's the Ischias campaign, basically. It's the scale. All of those are smaller operational focus areas. This is strategic. And I think, and it's just my opinion, but I think that the system is kind of breaking down under the pressure. Now, my 20-sided die thing also has issues because if you roll low numbers, you're going to be back in the same spot as you are with scouting. If you roll high numbers, well, then you can have, you know, ridiculous force again, trying to invade Midway, way too many infantry to possibly fit on the island. I guess you could say that, you know, they're there to show up and attack, but again, you know, if they're showing up with that many transports and you only have, like what I had this last time around, 2 CVEs, I mean, given what happened, when you think about some of the other campaigns, and several times the Japanese invasion force, like the Port Moresby, the Coral Sea, the Eastern Solomons, down in the Solomon Islands, you know, the transports turning around and going home, you know, would they really have been trying to force that many transports in when they don't have air superiority, especially when the opponent has LBA on land? I mean, I know the Tokyo Express did it, but that was nighttime. I mean, you know, so there's still some problems here. One thing I've thought about, and of course this would be totally on my own, and this is just, I'm throwing this out, and again, feel free to make comments in the comments section. I also thought about trying to do the orders from top down, but as someone else pointed on one of the threads I posted on Board Game Geek, that would really give the Japanese way too much supply, and then they would turn into an invincible juggernaut, which is true. But I also thought about, you know, and then again, this is just an idea that I'm experimenting with, but what about taking the orders that are here, you know, all the different categories, if you will, battle and reinforce and sortie and stuff, and what if you made them and made the number of forces that you need to gather for them? Let's say you're offensive, you're going to have, you know, 4 carriers, for argument's sake. You know, 4 carriers, 3 cruisers, you know, 2 destroyers, something like that. You know, and maybe transports and things. If you put that together and build the force, kind of like in Peloponnesian War, you know, where you have the objective, you figure out, hey, I'm going here, this is the force you need to build to, you know, go to, you know, Corinth or whatever. I thought about that. I wonder if that would work, because then you wouldn't have to roll for each individual area. You would just be like, oh, okay, I need 4 carriers of some kind, so just randomly determine that, pull them from whatever areas. But again, you know, then you still have to figure out how you're going to work in the refit and all that stuff. So I guess the bottom line is what I'm trying to say is I feel like this is still coming up short. Now I haven't tried the campaign game yet, which is the other expansion. I do like the islands. The islands, the visual is very cool. The rules for each individual island group has been good. And the force markers for the Yamamoto, the fleet markers, the cards and stuff have been good because it does let you move those fleets together, but then you're still rolling separately for infantry and aircraft, which again is kind of like, well. And then there's another issue too with the support roll, because on the chart on the map it says Japanese forces ashore, okay, except East Asia and Japan. All right, fine. So send them to Japanese forces that are ashore, but not East Asia or Japan. But the rule book says, let's see, where is that page? Here we go. The rule book says move one area closer to Japan. But it doesn't say anything about forces ashore. So which is it? So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Those are my thoughts as I'm finishing up the battle midway here, which, again, the Japanese just sent 2 CVE. And since I scouted and knew that was what was coming initially, then, I went ahead and sent out 3 carriers, sent the Saratoga, Yorktown, and Wasp, and basically kicked some butt. Because, of course, you can't use any land-based air for the Japanese. Which, the distance is involved. I get that. So, I don't know. I guess I'm still struggling, and I guess I don't feel like the update and the expansion have solved all the problems. Yeah, I guess to put a period on the sentence. I like the resupply track. I like the concept. I even like some of the new orders that there are. But it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels, it still feels underdeveloped, I guess, is the thing. It's been 6 years since the original version came out, and it still feels like it's underdeveloped. I guess that's the only way that I can articulate that. So anyway, I'll let others weigh in on this. Again, feel free to discuss, point things out in the comments if you think I'm way off base here and all. But I know I'm not the only person that seems to be seeing this. Again, there's a thread on Board Game Geek that has been discussing some things. I keep hoping, and this other person does too, that we're overlooking something, but I gotta be honest, I don't think we are. Which is disappointing, because again, I have Meteor, Strategic, Pacific Theater games. I have Across the Pacific and Fire in the Sky. But I really would have liked something lighter like this. But again, I wonder, because this is strategic. This is the whole Pacific Theater versus the other 3 titles in this series that have been successful because they've focused more on operational and then stringing them together. Like Alexander, you have Granicus, you have Ishus, you have Tyre, and then you have Gaugamela. And that's it. You don't have one huge giant map. Same thing with Napoleon. There's how many campaigns there? There's a whole slew of them. So, yeah. Okay, so that's kind of my thoughts and musings where I'm at right now with the expansion and the updates, and I just feel like I've run aground at this point. I don't know if I'll come back and revisit at some point. I probably will. Again, I don't know if it's possible to do what I was thinking about assembling forces. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you could do that initially at the start, maybe. But then you would have to have... Yeah, I'm not sure. So, okay. Well, anyway, I just thought I'd throw those thoughts out there. I did say that I'd share with y'all what I was thinking, what I've noticed, and what I'm observing. And there's so many things that I do like about the game and I like about the system, but it just doesn't quite click. It feels like a football team where I've got a good scheme, I've got good concepts, and I have some of the players I need, but it's like I'm missing key people. You know, like I'm running a defense and I'm missing a linebacker, you know, or I'm missing a key strong safety, or, you know, an offense. I've got the offense I want. You know, it's like I want to run the, you know, the wishbone. I'll date myself here. I want to run the wishbone, but I don't have the quarterback. I have like a stand in the pocket passer, and that's just not going to cut it. That's not going to work. That's kind of how I feel with this being, you know, disjointed. Okay, so there you have it with that, and again, I'll be back at some point with something else. I'm not sure. I just got recently. I ordered Modern War, the French Foreign Legion game, which looks kind of cool. I haven't played a Modern Warfare game in a while, so maybe I'll take a detour into there too. I'm not sure. So, anyway, there's some ideas, some things to chew and stew over and mull over for you all. And again, feel free to comment in the comments section if you have ideas or thoughts and musings about what I've been talking about. So, this is Tim Korchnoi from Bare Bones Wargaming saying, I feel like that's a good analogy. I feel like the U.S. submarine skippers at the beginning of the war with the dud torpedoes that were just not going off. And some of them were and some of them weren't. That's kind of the way this feels. Some of this works and some of this doesn't. There we go. There's a good analogy for all of us. All right. Those of you who don't like football, I guess. Okay. So I will see you again next time. Probably not from here. Unless I have some burst of inspiration that I can come up with something along the lines of what I was talking about, but I don't think so. I think it's going to take some time and take some work, and I just don't know if I have either of those right now. With two toddlers, probably not. Okay, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time.